Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Bryce Lewis. Today with some more boring Excel stuff, but this, out of all of them, is probably going to be the most usable video, and I'll leave this as the last Excel one for a while and switch back to some training footage coming up, because training has been going really, really well. Anyway, as far as Excel goes, today we're going to be talking about how to make your content more visually appealing. Visually appealing is not just making it pretty. We want to make the spreadsheet more usable, and people will generally feel that things that are more visually appealing have more value as well, that you've put more time into it, that they're getting a better product. So this reflects well on your business, on your personal training, and so on and so forth. That you've spent time trying to make this look like something presentable, something that they would be comfortable using. And that you know a little bit about design, and that you've had an eye to detail. So we're going to go over 10 tips today about graphic design for Excel spreadsheets, how to make these things look better, and different things we can do. Okay, number one, and we're just going to keep modifying this spreadsheet here. So this is a very, very old template. This was our first one back in October of 2015. We've gotten a lot better, and I've purposely made it bad here so we can use this as a starting point to go forward. All right, so let's get open this other tab we have here. Number one, we want to space content away from the top corner here. So first thing I notice when I'm looking at this is that everything looks like it's just crammed in this top corner. What we're going to want to do is add in some space, just some empty space here, so that this looks more like a printed page, right? We have margins in printed pages here. We want the content to be spaced a little bit from the top, so your eye isn't drawn to the fact that it's all crammed here in the corner. That's already looking a little bit better, and of course, you can change these to be more or less large. The other tip, kind of based off of this one as well, is if you want to add a second row, by the way, when you present spreadsheets to people, especially if you lock them, what you can do is bring this to the minimum possible width of 1 by 1, and then you can park the cell reference way up there so that it's out of the way, so that when I'm looking at this, I don't see a selection cell somewhere just standing in the middle of the page. So you can just park that all the way up at the top. That way, the spreadsheet looks clean, more like a printed page when you give it out to an athlete. That's not really necessary, but certainly one thing you can do. And since we don't really care about A1 being a specific cell reference, it looks like the spreadsheet is starting at B and 2, and that's totally fine. So that is tip number one. Tip number two, we want to create a color theme. Okay, so this is going to be a theme that applies to all of Excel and all of our documents, presumably to add some sort of consistency between your sheets. Unless you have a specific purpose to have one sheet all red, one sheet all yellow, and so on and so forth. It's a good idea to have some consistency. So how do we build a color palette? Well, without going into color theory too much, it'd be a good idea to choose 2 to 3 colors maximum, or 3 colors and some shade of black, so a gray or something like that, maximum, so that there's not too much going on the page here. There are simple apps that are free that allow you to pick appealing color palettes, but Excel does have a few things that help you out here. So there are theme colors here that you can use across the top, and different shades of those that are lighter or darker by a certain percentage. So if you're just starting out, I would highly suggest going with one of these and either sticking with one shade and doing all shades purple, for instance, and maybe some black thrown in, or maybe combining 2 of these, so using a blue and a red, for instance, or a purple and an aqua, for instance. So just keeping the color palette simple will help out. So in our case, we're going to use a TSA color here, so we're going to go and pick this darker shade here. And since it's darker, by the way, I've made the text white so that it stands out. If I were to make this black, well, yeah, it's there. I can read it perfectly fine, but it's a little bit less readable than if I were to make the text white. So we want the text to be clearly visible there without any effort. So we're going to go ahead and make, in this case, our headings this kind of burnt red color. So we're going to keep that and maybe 1 or 2 shades of gray as our colors here, and black for the text, in most cases black or white. Obviously, there's unlimited options here. Excel even allows you unlimited options. If you click this More Colors button, you have every possible color imaginable. You can choose by hues here. You can choose a color picker or choose from the spectrum or even crayons. So at least in the Mac version, you've got all these different options available to you. All right, so that's creating a color theme. Next, the difference between merging cells and centering across selections and what we want to do when it comes to that. Okay, well, I've already had a few cells merged here, but I want to show you the difference in a few things and what we're after. So this is a merged cell. So let me unmerge this. What we've got here is a bunch of individual cells, and you can combine them into one big cell. Now there's some positives and some negatives to this approach. The positives is that you have a large area to type text in. So if I click merge here and I start typing some text, this is some great text. Man, I really like this text. A plus for originality. We want this text to wrap around the frame at least once and see what happens when that doesn't happen. Okay, so you can see that I've already hit the wrap text button. This is really important. If it doesn't, we get clip-offs on both sides. So let me left align this because that's what I'm going to want. Now I get the beginning of the sentence, but the problem is that I don't get the end. So what we want to do is wrap text. This allows us to treat this whole cell like a big paragraph, and it makes it really easy for formatting. The problem, though, is if I add or delete cells, or if I want to copy this and make this a bigger row, we get all kinds of problems when it comes to formatting. And generally, it's going to be a better idea to use a different option. So first, let me make these other cells here red, and we've got the client goals and protocol notes in just this one. Now, I'm going to select all of these cells here. I'm going to go to my formatting panel, which again I can access either by going up to Format and clicking Cells, or pressing Apple 1. And I go to, I believe, Alignment. And we want the text alignment here to be centered across selection. Now this tends to look exactly like merge cells because it centers whatever I've chosen in this first cell across all the cells. But the difference is that I can select each of the cells. We have less volatility in the cells, and the first cell still houses this content. So this is a great option. Also, if I happen to delete one of these columns, it will just center this content around the existing cells instead. So very useful. Generally, we want to use merge cells when we're talking about displaying like a paragraph of content or something like this. Like if I select all of these and I click merge, well, great, I've got a paragraph of content. That's nice. But if I just want to center a title, more often than not, we use the center across selection option. Okay, let's talk about alignment of text. So we have three options: left align, middle align, right align. This is pretty basic stuff, but if I've got some text here, well, let's choose a different example. If I've got numbers here, I generally like to see these either center aligned, sometimes left aligned. So we can left align both of these, and the labels are okay here, but it's nice to see the fat label a little bit closer to the number. So in this case, we can right align these, and I think in this case that looks much better, so I can see exactly as this goes down, exactly where they are compared to the numbers here. So play around with alignment, make sure that things look visually pleasing. You can center titles, I think that's a good idea. And in some cases, like this one that's extra long, I left aligned, etc. These, so that we have a nice visual vertical line down for these titles, we left align. And you can see how alignment tends to play into how you're visually looking at things. Just another option, by the way, if I've got something like this, remember I can take this. We not only have alignment left to right, we also have justification top to bottom. So right now this is aligned to the top. I can align it to the middle, so it's right across the middle, or I can align it to the bottom. So you have those options as well. Okay, so that's about that's about alignment of text. Next, and this is a big one, let's talk about borders, dotted lines, and white lines. So people mainly use borders, but they mainly use the standard border. So let me select this text and go back to my panel and go back to border. look at all these different options for different line styles that we can choose. 9 times out of 10 people use the standard one here, just this generic line, and you can either click on this little page where you want the lines, or you can click these preset buttons, all the outside lines, all the inside lines, and you can click OK. You also have the option of some diagonal lines if for some reason you want to X out a cell or something like that. So that's cool, but that's a little bit boring. And there's a lot of other things we can do. Just a few really cool things we can do are keep a rather thick line around the outside. So I'm going to select this one, I'm going to put it around the outside, and then I'm going to select this one and I'm going to put it on the inside. So this gives us a nice big box around the outside and dotted lines on the inside, so we have a little bit more of a refined look there. You can play around with different line styles, but that's one that I like. The other one is, let's make all of this a color, and then let's make our text white to match, and then let's go back to our line panel. Let's change the color now to white, and for some stupid reason they make it so that you can't see any of these lines, but I'm going to click this one because I know it's the dotted line, and I'm going to make it dotted there, and I'm also going to make the outside white. That's not what I want. Okay, I have to make this a color so I can even see what the heck is going on. Let's go with this one. I think will do the trick. There we go, and inside. So it's not letting me for some reason. I mean, already that looks okay, but that's really not what I'm going after. I like to see the dotted lines on the inside there. But you can see how a color looks all right, especially if I take this middle one and maybe I make it a shade lighter or something like that. So it's less visually just impacting, kind of settles in the background a little bit than if I were to just have thick black lines everywhere around the screen. Okay, so we can use different colored lines to format our text in different ways. We can also use lines as underlines across text. So if I want like maybe a solid red line across the top here, I can choose this thick one, I can make it bottom, and now we have a nice bold line there right across the top. It's kind of like a heading line. So there is borders. Next thing we can do is create tables. So Excel has beautiful table features. Let me first get rid of all of this formatting down here. So let's just pretend that it goes down to here. I'm just going to delete everything below. And let's get rid of all of this formatting. So we go automatic, no fill. Oh, I think I applied some conditional formattings here. Let me get rid of these. Conditional formatting is a whole other animal. You have a bunch of great things you can do, but let's pretend we don't. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually let's also get rid of this formatting up here at the top. Okay, we're just about blank. I'm going to select this and I'm going to say insert table. Once I do, it automatically formats this as a table. It automatically will alternate the colors between a dark and a light, and we have all these different predefined table styles, or we can go in and build our own. Also, we have a total row down at the bottom, for instance, that we can put in. We can put in a first column that's a different color, or we have a last column that's a different color if you have tallies or totals. Banded columns will actually band the columns too, as well as the rows. And I can just go ahead and click through these styles and just choose one that represents my chart. You'll remember that these correspond to those colors that we saw before, so very handy in different ways. So you can take a look at those and choose one that maybe represents the look that you want. So that's not bad. All right. Tables are great. Use tables whenever you have a certain amount of data that you want to categorize certain ways, or collect large amounts of information that maybe you want to sort through or just process in some way. These buttons, you can hide them, but they're really useful. For instance, I can sort by the date, ascending or descending. I can sort by weight. When was their highest weight? When was their lowest weight? We can search by all weights that are above 180, or all times where fats was above 60 or something like that. Or any time where I put in a note and all the rest are empty, so I can just briefly look through what my notes were for them on different times. Great, already starting to look better. Next thing we can do is resize rows and columns, so we don't want text to ever be cut off. So yeah, this initial values, I can barely see that. Same thing with down here. So we need to resize some rows and columns to make sure we can fit everything in. That's looking better. So now I can see all of this data here. I need to make these a little bit wider so I can see where it says current values there and initial values there, and the same for the start as well. So great. Data looks much more presentable now. We're really on a roll. Things looking good. Remember to resize rows and columns depending on the content of your data. And if you want to copy the dimensions of a column, you absolutely can. If I click up here and select copy, I can go over, let's say, pretend to this column, and I can right click, I can say paste special, and I can paste the column widths. That way if I want the column width to be exactly the same here, I can make it the case. And the cool thing is I can do that for multiple columns. So I select all of these, I copy them, and let's see, I go over here and I paste special and I paste the column widths, and now these are exactly the same, all 5 of them, as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 over here. So, so that's very convenient. All right, the next thing we can do is use graphics. So the strength athlete is here, but it's just plain text, so it's kind of boring. We're going to delete that and bring in a graphic. So that way we can kind of use other fonts, we can use our logos, we can make things more visually appealing. And there's all kinds of things we can do with this picture besides just resizing it and making it bigger and smaller. Actually, I can right click it, I can click hyperlink, and I can make it a direct link to my website. I can go here and make sure that it sizes or doesn't size with cells. So if I click Command 1 here and go to properties, I can say move, don't move or size with cells, move and size with cells, and I can make the object locked or not. So now if I'm changing the widths here of these things, it's going to stretch this picture to match. In most cases, we really don't want that to happen because pictures, in our case, are going to contain text. We don't want the text to stretch, so we want to turn that feature off. Generally, move but don't size with cells is going to be the option for us. Okay. One of the last things we can do, actually, sorry, 2 things, so I guess this is going to turn into an 11-tip video. We want to go to layout and we want to turn off grid lines. This one feature alone will make your spreadsheets 1,000 times cleaner. All of the formatting and all of the order on the sheet, we want to create ourselves. We don't want Excel to impose grid lines on it, even though they're very useful for seeing where one cell is different from another. We want to turn these off and create our own structure there. So we can see that now we've got a beautiful looking sheet here. We have clear delineations between the data, except for this, which we haven't formatted yet. We've got this little chart here that shows some refeed day macros. We've got some intake, some cardio, some training, etc. And overall, we're looking pretty good here. This is a nice formatted sheet so far. There's still much more we can do, but kind of here's the start. The other thing that I encourage you to experiment and play around with is breaking free of the font that Excel gives you primarily. Now, most people are going to be viewing these on a computer or on a mobile phone, which means they're going to be looking at a screen. And guidelines for looking at screens means we primarily want sans serif fonts. So a sans serif font means that it doesn't have serifs or those little straight lines at the end of letters. Those are called serifs. So let's compare here. Maybe something like Times New Roman is a very classic serif font. And let's say Program Overview. Now this is beautiful, but the problem is it's not extremely readable, especially if we have large amounts of text. So we want sans serif fonts. However, there are a ton of sans serif fonts here. Just make sure that you're using ones that are installed on all computers and not ones that maybe just you have on your computer, like this one called A Love of Thunder, which has some big bold letters. And if you zoom in, it's a really nice font, but for a totally different purpose. No one's going to have this font on their computer, so we want to make sure that the fonts that you use, everyone's going to have. Otherwise, if you want text that's in a font that's non-standard, you should put it in a picture so that more people are going to be able to view it in the way that you want it to look. So there's a few tips. As a last formatting guideline here, you can actually color the tabs by clicking tab color here. and just changing the color to something that suits you. So that should help out quite a lot. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can find us on our website at www.thestrengthathlete.com. Take care.